one of the prime movers of getting us into crowdfunding. And where's Rob?
Running around.
Rob was away, and Cheryl Mann, our social marketing and social media person. And there were people that are going to be coming in. You know, you just never know with scheduling, so be more patient with the airlines. We had almost 175 people sign up for tonight. I have no idea where they are. Anyway, I have a life of my own, believe it, so we're going to get started. I want to turn things over to Alex Feldman from Crowds Unite. He was actually one of the prime movers too. We kind of met serendipitously at one of these really big expos. And you know, the crowds are down there too, year after year. So without further ado, it's your show.
Can you guys hear me? Do I need a mic? We have a little more time, but who here is actually, by raise your hands, who is a small business? Who is a student? Do you pay somebody? Alright. So everybody else is just curious about crowdfunding? And who here has never heard of crowdfunding before? Which is pretty amazing. First of all, I want to thank our host, Small Business Development Center at Peace University, and Ira for putting this all together. It's a great event, and thank you for inviting us and the panel to share our knowledge about crowdfunding. So, before I start, I just want to take a couple minutes and introduce myself. My name is Alex Feldman, and I'm the founder and CEO of Crowds Unite. Crowds Unite is a company, it's a resource for crowdfunding. So what we built a directory of over 400 different crowdfunding platforms, and we're the biggest review site in the world for crowdfunding. That's why I'm so excited to actually moderate a panel with 3 different crowdfunding platforms. Besides that, I also do a lot of educational events in the city. I run NYC crowdfunding meetup, which has over 850 people, and every single month we do educational events. And we actually have 2 events next week, which deal with marketing for crowdfunding. So there's one on Monday, which is this day, and it's usually hosted on Monday. It's a great division from reality crowdfunding. So we'll be teaching about marketing for crowdfunding platforms. So if you're interested, the meetup is NYC crowdfunding. So, it's really interesting that crowdfunding is, if you've ever heard about crowdfunding, the whole crowdfunding industry did not exist 10 years ago. So 10 years ago, the crowdfunding word didn't exist. And it's amazing how far the whole industry went in such a short amount of time. It's pretty much been doubling every single year. And by latest estimates, I think this year, 20% is about $10 billion. So that's how much money people gave to other individuals and other businesses worldwide through these crowdfunding websites or platforms. I'll be using websites and platforms. So that's $10 billion for an industry that did not exist 10 years ago. I'm excited to say that. I mean, the breakdown, there's kind of 3 different types. There's actually 4 different types. Donations reward crowdfunding. And we have Indiegogo here representing that kind of industry. And some stats that I've seen that actually Indiegogo, since they started, 6 years ago? 2008. 6 years ago. There's over 300,000 projects that have been on the site. So maybe Henry can correct me, but 300,000 projects on one platform. That's huge. Thank you. And currently, their size is approximately between 1 and 2 billion. I'll say maybe close to 2 billion this year. Go ahead and correct me if I'm wrong. The other platform is actually is lending platform. That's the biggest chunk of the current industry. I I did some actually research last year myself, and I wanted to find out who's investing in which platforms. So I found out of 230 VCs, 80% of them invested in lending platforms, about $800 million. This was a year ago. Because lending is it's a simple process. You know how you're gonna get paid. You know the math has been there for hundreds of years, and basically it makes it simple. It removes banking from the equation. It makes the loans cheaper or faster. You can get some of those sites. You can get a loan within a day or definitely first week. And the approval rates are much higher. So there's different incentives of using online lending sites. And the third, so the lending sites we have Lentor here, Victoria Crane from Lendor will be talking about that. And equity crowdfunding, we have Aaron from CFS. Equity crowdfunding is actually a newcomer to the industry. It's Jobs Act came out about 3 years ago, and it's about deregulating the equity crowdfunding industry. And it's changing a rule, 80-year rule, which will allow individuals, anybody in this room, to actually invest in private companies. So it's actually building a separate asset class that wasn't there before. It means your family, your mom, your dad, your friends can actually own a share of your business. And before, it was impossible, or even if it was possible, it was very hard to do. So they're building this whole industry from scratch. And it's very interesting how it's growing. And there's a lot of talk about equity crowdfunding, and currently they're still filing some of the ruling, but it's a very exciting space to go. Just the friends and family industry. So that's the industry that friends and family give to small businesses, which haven't been regulated. It's kind of under the table industry. Is estimated to be $60 billion, which is twice as large as the VC industry here in the US. So even if they take the $60 billion and move it to equity crowdfunding, it's going to be a huge industry. But the potential for that is going to be actually much higher than that. So the question is why? Why is this happening? Why is it happening now? There's a lot of different forces that came together to make it possible. And once you have small businesses that are not happy with the banking industry, right? They don't want to go to a bank, fill out paper forms, wait months and get denied, right? They need the money fast and quicker. In the current economy, that basically will make sure they survive. On the other side, you have people, normal individuals, who have money in the bank and they're getting what, like 0.001% interest, and they're not happy with the banking industry. So the whole point of crowdfunding is actually connecting these two entities: people who have money with people who need money, and putting them together. And with the current technology, with the websites and internet, it's possible. Can you hear me? No?
Yeah, I don't know what it's here. So you use the mic.
Yeah, okay, all right. I don't know if it stretches that far. Does it stretch? Yeah. Hello? Oh, actually, okay, hello? Is it better?
Yeah.
All right, all right. All right, what was I? So the other thing that came together that made it possible is actually the internet came together, the last 15 years. People are more comfortable using the internet. People are comfortable paying things and buying things online. The payment structure came in. And third, the social media made it happen too. So now with Facebook and LinkedIn, people have an identity online. And this identity is what makes it possible for people to know who you are, and when they give you money, to know this individual is authentic. And if he's not, then all his friends will know that he's just fraudulent. So different factors came together the last 10 years to make this industry possible, and it just exploded. So hopefully by having this panel here, you should find out where do you belong. Do you belong in the reward space, in the lending space, in the equity space? And hopefully by the end of today's panel, you can figure out. If not, hopefully you can ask some more questions then. And what I'll do, I'll try to go through different questions to show you the difference between each platform. And each platform has a different incentive for you to raise money, Some of them need to be a business, some of them need to be, could be both individuals and businesses. Some of them need to be different size. You need to have maybe a marketing or networking behind you to raise money. And there's different incentives for people to give you money back. So either they are backers, lenders, investors. These individuals want different things from you. Some of them just want financial return, and that's fine, and if you can provide for them, everybody's happy. Some of them might want something more social. They don't care if they lose $100 or $200 on your business, but they want to invest in you or your project, and there's a little more emotional behind it. So you have to figure out, where do I belong with these platforms? So let's get started. So can all the platforms just, I kind of did a quick introduction, but can you just introduce yourself, your business, your position in the business, and some stats like average raise on your platform, average duration, and success rate, if you have that stats. It's not private.
Yeah, so hi everyone. My name is Henry Scholl with Indiegogo. And Indiegogo is the world's largest crowdfunding platform. We're in over 200 countries, and we've posted, as I said, over 300,000 projects to date since launch in 2008. And we distribute millions of dollars a week on the platform across the globe. And we've actually, as far as average raise, we've had campaigns raise thousands of dollars up to millions. So it's really a completely open platform, and we're open to business, individual. There's really no requirements. So we help people find what matters to them.
Hi, my name is Victoria Crane. I'm CEO and co-founder of Lendor. We are called lending platform for small businesses. So like Indiegogo, you have to actually have an incorporated business to come to us. And like them, we are in pre-launch, meaning that we have not completed a single transaction yet. That is because we are still waiting for the SEC to apply the rules for Title III crowdfunding implementation of the Jobs Act. That being said, we are fairly optimistic that they will do so soon. We are also considering launching locally in Texas at the beginning of the year, which is not necessarily any of you because you're not in Texas. But if you are interested in crowd lending and crowdfunding business loan, you come talk to me, and we can set you up with a password for our platform. You can use our tools to prepare presentation to credit case and in return of your thoughts of our platform. And just one small bracket here. Alex spoke about debt crowdfunding being the largest, basically the largest crowdfunding piece. It really, there are a lot of definitions of crowdfunding, and what Alex is talking about, Lending Club, Prosper, it's commonly known peer-to-peer lending, marketplace lending. Quite often, online lenders also being lumped into under the crowdfunding umbrella. The promise is, yes, faster loans, lower interest rates, it's all great, but the reality is that the loans are being approved faster, for sure. Most platforms will tell you that they still turn down about 75% of the applicants. And the interest rates sometimes that would charge are well into the 30, 50, 60, 70% APR. I see some shocked faces. There is, on one hand is the promise, and on the other hand is the reality. What Lendor here is trying to do is to help facilitate small business loans from friends and family. My statistics about friends and family financing is actually 140 billion. We're still talking in the billions. And I don't think there is a research out there that shows how much of that goes into equity and how much of that goes into loans. But what we know empirically is that many of those loans, currently they're happening at uncertain terms of lend you money, pay me back whenever you can, or pay me back with such and such interest, and then, oh well, if you don't pay me, I don't know what to do. So what lender is going to bring to the process is to make it more efficient, more transparent, and ultimately better for both sides. The borrowers and as a small business owner, you have a higher borrowing potential by doing it a lender, and the lenders, you have a little bit more protection in terms of having agreement for that loan to your rights. I'm sorry, I'm going to.
I'm Aaron Kellner. I'm an investment director at Seed Invest. Seed Invest is a leading equity crowdfunding platform that connects accredited individual and institutional investors to high-quality early-stage technology companies. Some statistics, we have a success rate in excess of 95% since our platform launched in February of last year. We have helped about 24 companies successfully fundraise so far this year. The average raise on the platform has been a bit over $500,000, with the largest being $1.6 million.
Great, all right. One thing, interesting fact is, you mentioned Lending Club. Actually, Lending Club last week filed the IPO papers. So it's actually the first crowdfunding website that will be going public. So you can actually buy shares in crowdfunding next year. The Lending Club is not actually a pure crowdfunding website because you don't connect individuals and investors directly. And it goes through the company, and half of the people actually getting money are actually institutions. Actually, all the banks, private equity company, investment company, go to Lending Club and because they want the returns in Lending Club, because Lending Club gives average of something like between 8 to 10%, which is what the market does. So it's actually banks actually are funding operations in Lending Club. Very interesting. But anyways, I'm digressing, so let's move on. So can you please tell us more about the process? Let's say somebody here wants to use your platform. Is there any specific requirements? Do they need to be an individual or business? Do they need to be US based or could they be internationally? And I guess we already kind of covered some of the aspects. So if you can also talk about what's the steps they need to do to actually start the pre-funding stage. Do they need to make a video? Do they need to do a campaign? Do they need to get individuals or the crowd behind them, or do you help them getting a crowd and promoting their campaign?
Sure. Yeah. So on Indiegogo, there's no application process, so you're not required to be an accredited investor or anything like that. As far as country region, we're actually in over 200 countries, so there's really no requirement of being in specific regions. You're free to launch a campaign on the site, no matter where you are. As far as other requirements, again, you can be an individual, nonprofit, business. You just have to define which one you are, but it's completely open there. Categories, again, this is really for anything. So we've had both, anything from cause-related to creative and entrepreneurial campaigns on the platform. So again, it's really open to everything. Successful campaigns tend to have a video. So as far as creating your actual campaign pitch, we definitely recommend creating a video to share that pitch and to share what you're raising funds for. You find that campaigns with videos raise over 115% more than those without. Although again, it's not required to have a video. You can put as little or as much information on your campaign as possible. But we definitely recommend transparent and sharing as much about your project as you can. Other tips for a successful campaign, I would definitely recommend having some kind of network in advance. So it definitely helps to have a crowd engage before you launch your project. In some ways, this might definitely start with your friends and family and close supporters, and it definitely helps to get more out there and building up social media following, email lists are all great ways to promote your campaign. The important thing is to think of people who would actually fund your project, people who are interested in what it is you're doing, people who might be interested in the perks you're offering. And so that's the other aspect of this campaign, which is that you can actually offer perks in exchange for funding. These might be products, services, actual physical goods, digital demos, or even something more outside the box, experiential. It's completely up to you what you offer, how you price them, and you can choose to limit them, do a lot of things there. But we find perks are a really great way to incentivize contributions. Unlike equity crowdfunding, you don't have to give up any kind of ownership or equity in your company, but you are able to offer something in return in the form of perks. So we definitely recommend thinking about perks, offering a variety of perks that people potentially could claim at different levels. So you might have one for a very low amount, $5 or $10, but you also want some at higher levels. $25 tends to be the most popular perk level on average. But you have perks for So as far as running the campaign, you definitely want to be proactive. You want to make sure to be reaching out to those networks you have. But as far as meeting your own crowd, we do find that launching a campaign on Indiegogo is a great way to reach a much wider audience that you may not otherwise reach without actually launching a campaign. So we help you to get a lot of exposure and getting more momentum outside of your initial network.
I may ask you a follow-up question. So I talk to a lot of people through my events, and a lot of them think they just go to Indiegogo and roll a campaign without any pre-work, and magically people will give them money for internet. Like what's a usual, how much work should you do in the pre-funding stage? Is there like a month of work, 6 months of work? Like what's, can you do like some good stuff? Because a lot of people think that, hey, if I just build it, they'll come and I'll get money.
Yeah, so that's kind of a big misperception out there that launching is as easy as just throwing up a cool video and hoping that people come to the page. We find that's not usually the case. It's definitely happened in the past. One notable example is a campaign known as Solar Roadways. They raised over $2 million for new technology to create solar panels that you can actually drive on the roadway. Really cool campaign, really cool project. It was actually just made by a small two-person team. But the thing with that is it kind of went on the internet, and that's how it just really blew up without them doing a whole lot of. They didn't even really necessarily expect it would go that far. Typically, we see that it does require a lot of work in advance, in preparation and building up a network of supporters before launching. You don't want to just kind of play the lottery and put something out there. You really want to know that your campaign is going to be successful, and you know that you have the best chances of running a really effective campaign. So, yeah, it's definitely important to have that network in advance, have a way to promote the campaign once you launch. So I'd recommend putting at least as much time into it as you need to get everything in line.
I'll be brief this time. In terms of how we think you should prepare for crowdfunding your loan, on the hand you said it basically applies to crowdfunding a loan. You don't offer perks, you offer to pay it back with interest. which comes helpful for companies that are not as exciting as that example that we just heard about the roadway, the solar roadway. I've spoken to small business that has small fish distribution business in New York. So obviously he cannot offer a great deal of cool perks, but he has a good viable business and he wanted to expand, so he can offer a relatively interesting interest rate. That being said, at least at first when you launch, we expect that it will be bring your own lenders situation. So you have to reach out to your network, to your friends, family, social network, online, offline, communities, whatever you think your business may be appealing to. People that know you personally as the entrepreneur or have knowledge of the business if the business has been in existence and their customers. And we offer three things. The amount that you'll be lending, the terms that you'll be paying it back for, 1 to 5 years, and the interest rate. And we offer one type of loan, monthly amortizable, equal monthly payment. So very easy to know how much you owe each month. And that's it.
Is that, no?
What? Sure, yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry, there was one question.
Do you give grace periods, or you just start paying off automatically?
That's a great question. No, we do not. So basically, once you fund your loan, you receive, if it's, you have to fully fund your loan to receive the money, right? And once you receive the money, a month after that, you have to start paying it back. So, well, you'd say, oh, how am I going to afford it if, I haven't deployed the money? And, well, how long do you think it will take you to pay back around 1 year? Maybe you want to build in a few months of grace period for yourself and raise a little bit more so you can start paying it. So to us, it's important that you start paying the loan back right away, which will give a very positive feedback to all your investors that you are paying attention and then and that you're paying back the loan.
So what you're suggesting is that, let's say somebody needs 100,000 for the heck of it.
Right.
And so raise or get a loan for 110 or 120.
For example, yes. So you can.
So pay the interest on the 20,000 just to make sure that it will pay for the.
Yeah, it's equal monthly payments, which include interest and principal repayment, just like a mortgage. So just be mindful that you have to start. This cash will be going out of your bank account each month. And if you think it will take you 3 months to deploy the money into, I don't know, the lease improvement, buy the new equipment, what have you, then bear in mind that you still have to make those 3 payments on the first 3 months before the investment starts bringing you more cash. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. And another.
All right, let's keep the questions to the end, because I'll be asking some basic questions, which we'll go over for the audience.
And I'll be happy to talk to you more offline, of course.
So the equity side of things is going to be the most formal of processes that you can probably imagine going through. For Seed Invest specific, we are focused on pretty much technology-driven or technology-powered companies that are looking to raise anywhere from $500,000 up to $6 or $7 million. Are doing this through the issuance of either preferred stock or convertible notes, and have so far ranged in either pre-money valuations or valuation caps ranging from $1 million on the low end up to about $20 million on the high end. If you are thinking of engaging in an equity crowdfunding campaign, you need to be an incorporated company in good standing. You should have a legal counsel that you are already working with, because there are a good number of regulations and just other legal matters that need to be kind of adhered to make sure that you're staying in the good graces of the SEC. It's not necessary to draft a full private placement memorandum. Kind of just general marketing materials in conjunction with offering documents. The legal offering documents themselves work because if you're only accepting investments from accredited investors, the PPM is not something that you need to actually draw up. When it comes to our platform, we only accept about 2% of companies that apply to list. So we do vet our deal flow quite substantially. It is one of the kind of value adds, if you will, that we provide to our network of investors that are looking to us for quality deal flow. To give a sense of what we are looking at when we, through our broker-dealer, conduct diligence on the opportunities on our platform, it's everything from every piece of marketing material that the company is using in order to fundraise, as well as data to back up any claims made. So whether that's sales, customer metrics, etc. We're looking at the offering documents that the company has, digging into the historical financials, the financial projections, doing reference calls, analyzing the competitive landscape, the addressable market, the management team. So it's quite in-depth, it's quite thorough. I'll be quite honest in that that is a very biased answer in terms of how we approach the space. There are basically two buckets that equity crowdfunding platforms fall into, two business models, generally speaking, that they can employ. One is the placement agent broker-dealer model, which is what Seed Invest subscribes to. The other is more of the online VC model, where platforms are either taking listing fees from the companies that are being listed or are charging investors carried interest when investors do decide. For portals like ours that operate as a broker-dealer, we have regulatory responsibilities to conduct diligence on the opportunities before making them available, which is part of the reason why we do such a deep dive. For potential issuers that are not kind of interested in going through that process, there are portals out there that do essentially act as listing services. They do not conduct diligence on the opportunities that are listed and are kind of like dating sites for investors and entrepreneurs, where you do put a profile out there and can connect with investors on the platform and then engage in a little bit more of a typical traditional offline process. In that regard, those portals are primarily social amplification platforms like Indiegogo, where you really are leveraging your network and the ability to advertise your raise to draw investors to you. There's no one that's going to be there doing it on your behalf.
Yeah, and if I may just jump in, I was too focused on being brief. If you're thinking about raising funds on Lendor, you will have to provide minimum amount of information about your business, about yourself as the entrepreneur. We are probably a little bit more of the other type of platform where we'll do the minimum amount of due diligence, that you're a real person and that you're not involved in securities fraud in the past. But we will leave it to your investors, to potential investors, to ask questions and do verifications. So in our opinion, it will be up to you. The more information you provide about your business, the more, the better the chances you actually raise the funds that you need.
All right, there's a lot of information kind of thrown at you. So just to recap, these are all very different types of platforms. Equity, very highly regulated type platforms. It's a securities and a lot of government regulations on top of it. Only for accredited investors. So those are wealthy individuals who make over $200,000 a year or have a net worth over $1 million. So right now there's only 8 million of them in the United States, and only I think under 5% of those are active angel investing. So hopefully using one of these sites you can tap into the other 95%. That's the big goal. On the other side, Indiegogo, reward-based, open for anybody, for anything. You can raise $100, you can raise $1 million. You're giving a pre-sale, a perk, an item, a service. No, not really regulated, and it's pretty much, if you raise money, you get it, and then it's your incentive to actually deliver the items. So there, and then Lendor's kind of in the middle.
Kind of in the middle, yes. When we do launch, we will be regulated. We have to receive permission by the SEC, and technically you'll be selling debt security on our website. Yeah, it will be regulated.
All right, so now let's say you qualify for a particular platform. The biggest thing that people ask me is like, yeah, I launched my campaign, but I'm not getting any people. How do I, get people to come to my campaign and give me money? That's the biggest concern. So I just want to throw in one kind of stat that kind of keeps appearing over and over, is this magical 30% number. Probably Indigo has some more information about that, but basically they say if you raise 30%, you have 90% chance of actually raising the full amount. And they say you should raise the first 30% with your own network within the first couple of days. So you want to get a little boost and bump from your local network. Because if you launch on Indiegogo, and I'll say Indiegogo because Indiegogo is open for everybody, but if you launch Indiegogo and you have people coming to your campaign and they like you, they like the project, but they say zero funding, so they think, hey, if this person's friends or mom didn't invest in them, why would I invest in the project, right? So it's psychological. They want to see some money in the bank. They want to say, hey, there's a good chance this guy will make it, and then they'll be more likely to give you money. So like some people, if you want to raise 30,000, make sure you can get 10,000 from your network before you even launch. If you came to that, then you should either reduce your goal, focus more on the marketing, or figure out why people won't give you money. So that's part of the market research, and kind of figure out, will I be able to raise that amount of money?
Yeah, that's a really great point. It's definitely important to be able to get that initial momentum. And there's a couple of reasons there. First of all, it's that social proof that Alex just said. It's kind of like if you have an empty, tip jar, people are less likely to contribute than if you have a few dollars kind of seated in there. So the same kind of concept applies to your campaign in that sense that you're more likely to get behind it, more likely to contribute when it's already off to a good start. And so that's why it's definitely important to have friends and family contribute early, but also really be able to get off to around that 30% mark quickly. The other thing is that on Indiegogo, the way that promotion actually works within our platform is with our algorithm called the Gogo Factor. The Gogo Factor is kind of similar to Google PageRank, if you're familiar with that. So it actually measures momentum and activity on the campaign. One of the things it's looking for is that initial momentum to get to around 30% within the first couple of days. Definitely having people contributing early and people sharing the campaign are all good ways to help to trigger that. And that's how you end up actually getting places like the homepage within Indiegogo and reaching our audience as well, which can really help you to get to that next level. So we have a large global audience, over 15 million monthly visitors to the platform. So by getting that first 30% really helps you get there. And we typically find it's not a, typically you get that sort of 30% from your own network, and then we help to amplify you to get that next 30%, and somewhere around a third will probably come from Indiegogo's audience as well. So that's how you really get to your goal and beyond it. And we actually find that of campaigns that hit their goal, over 30% actually exceed them as well. So throughout the campaign as well, it's also important to just be engaged as you're running it. Definitely to have that ready before you launch will help you get off to a great start. But throughout the campaign, you're going to want to continue to share and engage your contributors and your supporters.
These donations are taxable. which means it would not be a good idea to start anything now. Wait 3 weeks until the end of the year.
Good question.
No, that's a serious question.
Yeah, I mean,
Why should you get $50,000 now if you could get it in 2015? If it's taxable
yeah,
money.
I mean, you're still gonna be responsible for any legally required
Yeah,
taxes.
but the point is, we should report that in April next year, why not? As Mark Twain used to say, don't leave for tomorrow, or you can leave for after tomorrow.
I think basically one of these sites is, it's, the site's not, doesn't tell you if it's taxable or not. You gotta talk to your accountant, and then, you figure out an accountant, because you have to figure out the cost of goods, and, you know, it's basically people giving money for services or goods they deliver. So you talk to the accountant and you figure out how the money should be taxable. Because I don't think Indiegogo does provide.
We don't provide that kind of advice,
Kind of
we definitely
But I
recommend.
think it's taxable money.
It's probably is, but it depends how much is taxable. So because you tax on the, you know, on your income. So it depends how much your cost of the goods you're providing and giving back, subtracting how much money you get, you know, and then your income, then you're taxable. So, you know, it's, it varies depending on the cost of the item. Okay, one question and we'll continue on.
So let's say you're raising, again, 100,000. You've already raised 70,000 from your network, not on Indiegogo or not on any crowdfunding, then you're still missing 30,000. Can you start the campaign with 30,000, but do you have to, can you say that you've already raised 70%? Or it doesn't work this way, you have to have it all done through Indiegogo? Or
Right, it would
whatever.
have to- It would have to go into the campaign, but, you know, what we recommend is launching with those people ready to go, ready to contribute from the beginning, or at least having that list of people who you know are interested and likely to get you to that first 30% or so. And that's when we help to amplify you even further from our audience, and from, you know, just getting eyeballs on the campaign tends to drive a lot more exposure.
One thing is, actually Indiegogo is actually, it can be both all or nothing or flexible. So if it's flexible campaign, it means you don't have to raise the full amount. I mean, they charge, the fees are a little bit higher, things are 9% fees.
Yeah,
Plus-
so you have the option before you start to choose whether you want to collect all funds raised, whether or not you hit your goal, or just have an all or nothing if you really have that fixed target you need to hit.
Which is different from equity crowdfunding. I think equity crowdfunding, you do need to raise the full amount, right? No? Never really? Okay. I guess I'm wrong. Learn something new. So, but my follow-up question is what Henry kind of started talking about is, what, do you guys have any tips with somebody launching their campaign? How do they get more people coming? Can you general solicit, which is can you advertise their campaign? There's a lot of these so-called experts right now in crowdfunding. I'm one of them, by the way, but where they help you actually promote the campaign and advertise and market. And there's a lot of traditional marketing firms like PR, and they say, you know, we'll do a press release and we'll get you in magazine, newspapers, and some cost between a few $100s to thousands of dollars. I've seen it. Are these people worth it? Have you worked with them in the past? Let's go this way.
So I'll provide just a little bit of regulatory background as it pertains to equity crowdfunding. Alex had touched upon the Jobs Act and it rolling out. It's a little bit more nuanced. So the Jobs Act was passed in April of 2012 with the purpose of stimulating economic growth in the U.S., specifically by making it easier for entrepreneurs to access capital. The Jobs Act is broken down into various titles. Only a handful of which are, you know, very relevant to an equity crowdfunding space, but essentially provide the lifeblood for equity crowdfunding. The first title basically increased the cap on the number of investors a private company could have before facing increased disclosure requirements. That was lifted from 500 to 2,000 investors and went into effect right when the law was signed. The most significant part of the Jobs Act that's actually gone into effect at this point is known as Title II. What Title II did, and Title II went into effect September 23rd of last year, so a bit over a year ago at this point. Title II removed the 80-year-old ban on general solicitation, otherwise known as advertising. So now, for the first time since the Great Depression, a company, if it so chooses, can advertise its fundraise in whatever way, shape, or form they want. they can advertise to whoever they want, that they could still only accept investments from accredited investors. The part of the Jobs Act that is kind of most synonymous with the Jobs Act is Title III, which is not yet in effect. This will allow companies to both advertise their raises as well as accept investments from non-accredited investors. It is becoming increasingly likely that this part of the legislation is going to get further delayed than it already has been. But a lesser known title of the Jobs Act, known as Title IV, is a part that the SEC, it looks like, will be making a move on within the next 2 to 3 months at the latest. And this will, in a little bit of a different way, actually allow companies to advertise their raises and accept investments from non-accredited investors. So even in the absence of Title III getting pushed back into whenever, it still looks like in the relatively near future, we'll be able to have actual crowdfunding in this country. So, I mean, when it comes down to it, what crowdfunding does in terms of Title II, in terms of general solicitation, is again that social amplification in terms of being able to essentially, stand on the top of a building and shout I'm raising money and not be violating security laws. What it also allows for is a form of targeted advertising when it comes to investments that has literally never existed before because it hasn't been allowed, which is targeting to known, accredited, or active investors, whether it be on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Twitter, Google AdWords, et cetera, including retargeting. So if you are a company that is making a wearable device for the tennis market, in today's day and age, it's not that difficult to identify cohorts of tennis enthusiasts online and be able to continuously retarget them about this investment opportunity that might be of interest to them because they also have an affinity for tennis. So when it comes to marketing online, it is something that we do not only for ourselves as well as the issuers on our platform, but it is also money that we recommend issuers on our platform spend if they are engaged in a general solicitation campaign, which not all of them are, but it's admittedly very early goings. A lot of what's happening in the equity crowdfunding space that Alex kind of alluded to is very new because regulations haven't allowed for it, technology hasn't been there for it, but the kind of initial kind of data that we're getting back from the experiments that we've been running thus far is quite favorable.
Yeah, if I may, I mean, that was a really great summary of the legal aspects. Right now, if you go on your Facebook and say, I'm raising funds, whatever project, then you will only be able to take money from accredited investors. Basically, that's what it goes down to. So,
Can you take from foreign investors, not from US? Is that a possibility?
So if there's a Reg S provision in your offering documents, then yes.
Does that apply to all three of you, or just?
No, for Indiegogo, there's not any kind of regulations around marketing and promotion and marketing in any country.
and the difference is, there are two definitions, I guess, like of crowdfunding. One is raising small amounts of money from many people to fund a project, which is what Indiegogo and Kickstarter do. And then it's the crowdfunding definition that's in the Jobs Act, which is, I mean, there's a lot of legal issues.
It's an actual securities offering, so.
Yeah, I understand.
Right.
Just wanted to ask a question. I heard that there was some kind of crowdfunding activity going on with real estate. Is that something that's actually happening? Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so real estate crowdfunding is kind of like a bit of a subset, if you will, of the equity crowdfunding space, although there also are debt-focused real estate crowdfunding platforms. Ironically, right now, one of the opportunities on Seed Invest is a company called Patch of Land, which is a real estate crowdfunding platform that's crowdfunding their seed round on our crowdfunding platform. Most of the security laws, and specifically the exemptions that these platforms are operating are the same as a general equity crowdfunding platform, but are just applied to a very specific asset class. And that essentially pertains to both equity investments in real estate as well as lending to real estate
So
borrowers.
is that as mature as the equity?
It is a little bit less mature than equity because it kind of grew out from equity. However, I believe that the volumes have probably exceeded equity already, just because if you're investing in a real estate project, there's a hard asset that's behind it, so it's obviously viewed as being less risky. Equity crowdfunding is literally the most risky investment one can possibly make.
Yeah, I have a couple questions, especially for you, if you go there. Could you go back to this slide, please?
Sure can.
Yeah, I noticed some of them have, on the other, I guess the homepage, or the one that does all this, what's going on.
Sure.
Some have like 3% raise, I think something from regular trees or something, and the other, another one was, like 529%, raised in 8 hours. I'm not sure what that is.
8 hours left.
Yeah.
It's left to compare.
Yeah, but 529% was raised, right? Is that what that says right there?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, how do you get on the homepage, which is sort of a promotion kind of event in and of itself?
Yeah, so it's all to do with the go-go factor that I was talking about earlier. We don't manually curate any of the content within the site. It's all organically placed there by your go-go factor ranking. So that's why there are some things that show up on the homepage and these ranking pages that have a smaller amount funded because they're early, but this system has detected that they're just like on fire. They've got a lot of momentum going to them. And there's obviously some there that already hit their goal that are continuing to get contributions and activity. That's why they're going to be trending there.
Okay, so this one raised $1,100,000, okay? Now, you take 10% of that? Do you
No,
take-
no, that would be 4%.
You just take 4% of the total raise,
Right.
if they choose to, because they can cancel, right, if they want to. They say, okay, no, we're gonna go with this guy, he's gonna, or we're just
Well,
gonna
once
go
they're
cash.
live, the money is already going through, so they can't really.
They can't stop.
Once you
right?
launch and the funds are, you're actually going to get the money as the campaign goes. So.
So you can't, because earlier you mentioned that if you can either choose to go through if your goal is not raised.
Right. So that's something.
Yeah, or you
that's something
select
you
early on,
define
right?
before the campaign launches, and you can't change that once it's launched.
Okay, you do that in the very beginning.
Right. So if you're doing flexible funding, you keep whatever you raise, and that money's going to come to you as it comes in. If you choose fixed funding, then you're only going to receive the funds once you actually hit your goal.
Okay, and the final thing that I have, copyright. Is there any kind of issue with any things that are someone may take it, not,
Steal it? Like, you
Well-
think somebody might go and steal the idea
yeah,
of
they
building
can
themselves?
actually put up the exact same product on there. Do you all have something in your contract indicating that you're not responsible for that, or you will double, advertise or promote the exact same thing, even if there's a copyright issue? Do you have someone going on there attest to that?
Right. No.
they
So
are not
if a
knowing
campaign
infringing
is
any
not,
copyrights?
if a campaign's not actually owned by, if they're not who they actually say they are. That
Well,
would-
they are, but they're promoting the exact same thing, but they may have an issue. Will you still put those same things up on the site, even if there's an issue?
If a copyright owner comes to us and says, these people these people are illegally using my product or name or brand, we would honor that takedown request. So that, that would actually be flagged in our system. We have a whole trust and safety team that's there to kind of prevent that.
Thank you.
Is there any kind of time limit for campaigning or not?
Right, so a campaign can be anywhere from, it could be a day long, it could be 60 days long. Typically, we recommend a length between 30 to 45 days as the best sort of time frame to run a campaign.
Is that established in the beginning?
Right, you would set that before launching.
Thank you.
Let me ask one more question to the panel, and then we'll open up to the questions. It looks like you guys are really excited to ask lots of questions. So one question I have is just end of the campaign. Once the campaign finishes, let's say somebody uses your platform, they raise the money successfully, what happens afterwards? Is there a time limit? Do you have to deliver the goods? Is it a reporting limit? Is it, periodical, monthly, quarterly reporting that you have to do? Or is it, once they deliver the goods, do you guys make sure to deliver the goods? Just go over the process after the release. And then we'll open up to questions, I promise.
Sure, so on Indiegogo, once your campaign is completed, you will receive the funds. Oftentimes, you'll actually receive the funds before the time frame is even up, as long as you've already hit your goal. With PayPal, those funds come in pretty much instantly. With credit card contributions, which we also accept, there can be up to a week of processing, but you'll see those funds pretty quickly. And then the other responsibility, once the campaign is over, is obviously to fulfill any perks that have been claimed. So that would be up to you to ensure that fulfillment is complete. You would obviously get all the information through us about who's contributed, all their contact info, address, so you can reach out to them and fulfill on the perks that they've claimed.
It will be slightly different with us in terms of how we can accept money. We actually have to work with escrow account and take money only from bank accounts. So the money will be accumulating in the escrow account, and if the fundraise is successful, you should be able to receive the money within 3 banking days, as long as that's how long it takes to effect an electronic transfer. And once you receive the money, you have to start paying it back. So we touched upon that. It's equal monthly payments during the term of the loan. The rules, the way currently are proposed, you will need to update publicly, put one public update each year. So it will be almost like updating your loan project once a year if the rules remain the way they're currently proposed. We will keep your Q&A and messaging board open, and so if you would like to update your investors more often, if you would like to give them investor specials each month, that will be up to you. We do believe that crowdfunding alone actually has a mixed features between fundraising and marketing, and we're very excited about that. So it'll be really up to you how you decide to use it.
Just going back, you made a statement very early on in this process about the interest rates, and I was rather shocked in the state. Were you being?
Let's finish with one more panel, and then we'll go to the
Oh,
question.
okay.
So we
Sure,
can
I'll
make
be
sure
happy to talk about that.
Yeah, please, thank you.
I'll be very quick.
After.
Yeah, I'll be very quick.
Take
So
your time.
similarly in to the debt space, in the equity world, funds also need to be held in escrow until a close occurs. It doesn't necessarily have to be when a full, campaign is reached. It will be dependent on a deal-by-deal basis regarding how the offering documents are drawn up. The same applies to ongoing reporting and communication with investors. If you do equity crowdfunding, you are welcoming new owners to your company, and the amount of access that they have to you as the founder, CEO, member of the management team, as well as the information rights and updates that you need to provide on an ongoing basis are determined on a deal-by-deal basis, and it's part of the due diligence that investors will do when examining the opportunity, knowing, kind of how often they will be updated on the prospects of the business, as well as what type of information will be made available to them. So how about those interest
So,
rates?
sorry, so what was the question
Oh,
again?
you just said that you mentioned that the kinds of interest rates that could happen.
Yep.
And you mentioned like double digit 70%,
Yeah.
is I think the quote.
Yeah,
Is that real? I mean,
yeah, for real,
it's for real?
for real.
Um,
what, I don't, so,
You don't know.
I don't get 70%, that's like worse than payday loans.
Well, they will tell you that payday loans are charging 200%, and they'd say, well, yeah, but we will approve you real quick, like in a couple of hours. So, you know, it's a good question. It says, why would you lend any money that would, anybody that would pay you 70% interest, right? But yes, there are companies that do that.
What do
And-
you charge? What do you charge
well,
in terms of interest?
Well, we're not charging anything. It will be up to the small business to offer interest rate, and then, more importantly, up to them to convince their potential investors that that will compensate them for the risk they're taking of lending the money. So, yeah.
On the interest rates, are they personal guarantees or are they guaranteed by the business?
The loans are unsecured, guaranteed by the business owner over 30%. So if you and a couple of other friends each own 33%, you have to personally guarantee the loan. The way the platform is structured, though, the way you present the investment opportunity is to talk about the business and to convince your investors, to present your best credit case to the investors that your business will be able to support that loan. If you so choose to reveal your personal credit score, that we allow that to happen, but we'll then go and check that. So we will not run credit check on you, but if you decided to say, oh, my personal FICO score is 700 plus, excellent, and then we'll go and check that, confirm that.
Questions? All right.
Yeah, I have a question for you, Nico. What's the conversion rate, do you know, what's the range of conversion? Let's say people come to the page, to the campaign page, what do you usually see? How many women?
Conversions to contributions.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't really have an average figure on that. It's not really something we measure.
So if Alex's question about PR, let's say, right, like how effective is that advertisement? Is there any statistics on that?
On a campaign level, you can actually track that. We actually allow you in the back end to track, you know, dollars coming in from different sources via referral links. So what you can actually do is if you have a press article coming out, for instance, you can give a unique link to, you know, that reporter who knows writing that article, and that way you can actually track what funds are coming in through that press coverage. You can do a similar thing with digital advertising. So like actually let you track, you know, contributions that are coming in via maybe a Facebook ad spend you might be doing or Google AdWords. So we actually empower you to measure that kind of thing and be able to amplify your own campaign through digital marketing as well.
So you have no idea at all about percentages of people who actually make any kind of action on the page?
It's not a number that we put out.
I have one question. When it comes down to getting the funding, there's, you know, different avenues you can take. You can bootstrap it yourself, you can do a convertible note, you can do debt, or you can do equity. What do you find is the best way that somebody should start out? Should they start bootstrapping until they can go as far as they can go, and then do something like a convertible note, or is a convertible note going to hurt you down the line? Because potential investor down the line is like, oh, well, you're already giving this person a premium of 10%, and then on the second round of funding, you're going to give them 15% or 20%. Are they less likely to invest because of that?
So at a super high level, the path can be a function of the product or service that you're offering. A pretty well-trodden path at this point is a funnel that we're starting to see emerge between the basically top donation-based crowdfunding campaigns, then making their way to the equity crowdfunding world before kind of getting introduced to the more formal VC world. Oculus VR kind of skipped the equity crowdfunding part of things, but certainly went in that direction. We've had probably about 4 or 5 companies on our platform thus far that have had very successful donation-based crowdfunding campaigns. One of the companies we raised for earlier this year had one of the top 10 most successful Kickstarter technology campaigns. So the donation space is great, if you will, almost for kind of bootstrapping, in that you're getting money and you don't have to give anything away. It's also great for customer validation in terms of proving that there are people that are out there that are willing and see value in whatever product or service you're trying to provide. It's also a built-in kind of army of brand ambassadors that are hopefully going to say good things about what you're bringing to the table as long as you deliver on time. Moving on to kind of the next bit. I mean, everybody loves the bootstrapper. Everybody loves to see sweat equity. If there is no sacrifice on the part of the entrepreneur, and this is totally just in like the equity crowdfunding space, like early VC angel investing. If you're not seeing an entrepreneur or a founder who's sacrificing, there are very few people who are gonna back them, because essentially the thinking is okay, well, when the back is up against the wall and it's time for kind of fight or flight, if someone has optionality, they're just gonna run and do something else. But this is literally the only thing this person has. Like, they're gonna do everything they can to make this company a success, and that's what I want as an early stage investor. There are people who view convertible notes as not being investor friendly. They are a relatively new type of security offering that's kind of gained prominence. From our perspective, we actually don't see them as being so bad, and don't necessarily view them as being viewed negatively by later stage investors. The primary benefit of a convertible note is the fact that it allows a company to raise money without having to go through the burdensome process of actually having a price tag associated with your company. It's also a much simpler kind of legal doc to have drawn up. And when it comes to the valuation cap or the discount that might be associated with that convertible note, I mean, it literally is, compensation to the investor for having invested in you earlier and assuming that additional risk. Someone who's coming in a year later, 2 years later, even 6 months later, really should be under, if they're a relatively sophisticated investor, they really wouldn't view them as investing at a higher cap as being a negative against them. It's the fact that their investment to that point is essentially de-risked to a certain degree relative to someone who came in earlier.
You said something that giving some people might go to donate, and I'm guessing that you have the option to go the donation route on your site.
No, so we are only equity crowdfunding. So there's a platform out there called Fundable, which is both a joint equity crowdfunding as well as donation-based. And you do on that side have the option of doing one or the other and potentially both. They also kind of subscribe to the other type of model that I referred to earlier, where they're not acting as a broker-dealer or placement agent. They're not really conducting diligence. It's much more of just an online matching platform.
So do you feel that, let's say for example, you do go the donation route, or you start to go to fund your campaign, do you see that, let's say somebody didn't get all the money that they wanted, do you find that hurts their brand perception?
In regards to doing like a donation base and then moving on to something
It's
else?
not just on a donation base, let's say it's just crowdfunding, you're trying to get, let's say you're trying to raise $500,000, and you've raised $100,000. Then it's like, oh, you thought you had all this momentum, then when people kind of look into you, it's like, oh, well, you're trying to get $500,000, you only got $100,000. Does that hurt the brand perception that you may be trying to put out, and kind of like hurt you?
I mean, we definitely find that, running a successful Indiegogo campaign is actually a great way to build on market validation and attract investors, at a later stage. We've had a number of campaigns on Indiegogo that have gone on to raise VC funding and at higher valuations than they would have been able to do otherwise without that campaign. One notable example is Breathometer. It's a iPhone breathalyzer. You can actually plug in your phone. And they ran an Indiegogo campaign, raised several $100,000, and they then went on to go on to Shark Tank and actually got investments from all 5 sharks, raised $2 million in venture capital. So
And even aside from like Fundable that I mentioned, I mean, there are already instances as well of companies raising on like an equity crowdfunding platform that will be having a simultaneous campaign going on a donation-based crowdfunding platform at the same time, and are essentially pointing accredited investors to the donation-based crowdfunding page to basically show them, hey, you know, look at all the momentum that we have on this platform. These are our potential customers. There is demand for what we're selling, and basically use it as a selling point.
So the unaccredited investor can go there, but you can't offer them anything in the company. But the accredited investor can go to the accredited site and actually get it.
Which is going to change relatively soon.
How much time?
So it's hard to tell. Again, people think of non-accredited investor crowdfunding, they think of Title III of the Jobs Act. The rules for this were released in October of last year. It's already over 700 days overdue in terms of when the SEC was mandated by Congress to unroll new rules. Still doesn't seem like it's going to be, the final rules are going to be released anytime soon. Even if they are, the rules are most likely going to represent what was proposed, which is going to be a little bit not workable in terms of creating a viable ecosystem in the crowdfunding space. What has kind of emerged as a dark horse is Title IV of the Jobs Act, which is going to reform a type of offering that currently exists called a Reg A offering, which is essentially utilized by nobody because of the legal and regulatory burdens that are associated with them. High level Reg A is you can raise up to $5 million, you can advertise, you can raise from accredited and non-accredited investors, but you have to register with the SEC, so it's basically like a mini IPO, and it's not preempting any of the states. You actually have to register with every single state as well, which is just a ridiculous notion if you're only raising up to $5 million and already registered with the SEC. A Reg A Plus offering, which is what Title IV of the Jobs Act is going to bring about, is going to allow companies to raise up to $50 million, can advertise, can accept investments from non-accredited investors, still have to do the registration with the SEC, but that registration is now going to preempt the states. So not only are you going to be able to, again, you have to go through a little bit of a mini IPO process, there's going to be some legal costs up front, but you are going to be able to engage in a real crowdfunding campaign, which this country has not seen before. One of the other benefits of it is that it also solves the liquidity issue. Because you've registered with the SEC, those are freely tradable shares, which you can't do in the private placement market as it stands right now. Yeah, it would basically be something like that.
It's a whole year, right?
What's up? No, Title III, you have to hold for a year. With a Title IV, it's, because it's a registered security. You can do it.
Yes.
The way I'm hearing it, I'm hearing small, medium, large. Yes?
I wouldn't say that's the case. I mean, we've had campaigns raise, $4 or $5 million. So, I mean, it's really at any scale.
I think average, you might be kind of right. I mean, average, I think Indiegogo is around, I'll say 10,000. I mean, probably correct me, but average, equity is over 250,000. So it is kind of right, but yeah, you can have Indiegogo campaigns raise as much as they can. There's no regulations. They have projects raising over $1 million. And lending,
I wouldn't say average is 10,000. We don't really put out an average statistic, but we got $100,000 campaigns launching every month. We've got $1 million campaigns every month. So it's pretty big on that scale. But since we're an open platform and we have 10,000 campaigns live at any time, there's obviously a wide scope since anyone can just put something up.
I would say it's not, small, medium, large. It's what life stage of the product of the company is, like product stage. Then your company, do you generate cash flow? Lending would probably be a better option. Do you not generate cash flow, but do you have large growth potential? Then equity, but still a lot of risk. Then maybe equity is your choice. So it's really not the size as much as to where the product and the company are in their life cycle.
Strategically, like if you wanted to raise some money, would it be better to say you want to raise $100,000 rather than $1 million? Because then you're 30% that you should raise, like bootstraps kind of thing. Strategically, I mean, if you can go over anything,
Strategically, you know, you're looking at two things. One is how much, you know, you actually need in order to move forward in your project. But definitely you want to set a goal that's reasonable that you actually can attain. Because, you know, setting a higher goal doesn't mean you're going to raise more money.
Right, so that's what I'm saying, like if you set a lower goal, being that you can go over it.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, we see most campaigns that hit their goal will exceed them by a significant amount.
Can you have campaign in Kickstarter and Indiegogo at the same time?
I mean, we don't place any restrictions, but I would recommend sticking to one platform. Otherwise, you're going to split your efforts there.
Yeah, I just want to mention one thing with that is something called stretch goals. Basically what that means is you should set the goal as small as possible. I mean, let's say you have a goal to build a school, right? And if it costs you $10,000 to build a school, then you should set $10,000. And if you raise that, let's say first week out of 30-day campaign, you can say, hey, if we raise $20,000, we'll build a second floor in the school. If we raise $30,000, we'll put computers in school. So you kind of set the minimum goal you need to accomplish what you got to accomplish. But if you go, you know, if you accomplish that goal really fast, you can incentivize people to come back and give you more money or offer additional services. I mean, the biggest actually reward-based project so far is a game called Star Citizen, and they raised over $60 million for the game on their own website, and the game doesn't exist yet. It's gonna come out in 2 years, and they have over, I think, like 500,000 people gave. You can actually Google Star Citizen if you want to check it out. And what they do is they actually, every time they raise $1 million, say, hey, if we raised 81st million, we'll build a new spaceship. It's basically a game in space. You fly around in this universe. And they say if we raise 82 million, we'll build a new planet that anybody can enjoy. And they've been fundraising for the past year, probably close to 2 years, I think, and they've raised lots of money.
Does the person who starts the campaign get all the information from all the donors from Indiegogo? Because they're donating directly to Indiegogo, right? I mean, so you
Right.
know who they are.
Yeah, you're gonna get their information that they provide and they contribute.
Unlike your email.
Yeah,
So
you
like
get their
if you-
email
if you're
address.
raising-
If you require an address for a contribution, like if you're shipping a physical perk, then you'll obviously get that shipping address as well. And yeah, regarding stretch goals, that's definitely a great way to incentivize contributions. You know, once you hit your goal, you know, some good ways to do that would be either through offering an additional product, if you're doing a product kind of campaign, or you know, upgrades to the product in crowdfunding, you know, or maybe just other kinds of impact that the campaign is actually going to have. You know, if it's like a cause-related campaign, you know, saying we're going to build another addition to the school that you're funding for, or whatever it might be.
For Indiegogo, can you explain the difference between Kickstarter and Indiegogo and why someone would choose one over the other?
Sure. So you know, Indiegogo is a more open platform than them. We don't restrict your project to any specific category. They're a little bit more restricted about what they allow. You can do a sort of general, more cause-based campaign there, whereas you know, we're open to any kind of nonprofit in addition to you know, entrepreneurial, creative type campaigns. In addition to that, we're more global than them, so we're in over 200 countries. They're a bit more limited internationally. And again, we have the flexible option that they don't have. They only have the all or nothing model, so you know, you can choose which of those is right for your project. And we also have lower fees on the fixed end. We only charge 5%, where they actually charge 5%. Or sorry, we charge 4%. They would charge 5% on that. And there's another slight difference in the way that our funding model actually works. On Kickstarter, they're all pledges, so you don't actually get that money as the campaign is coming through, so you're going to get more delays at the end before that money comes through. On Indiegogo, once you hit your goal, even on a fixed funding campaign, you know, even throughout the campaign, you're actually going to start seeing that down there.
How will you establish a presence? I'd like to promote my business, Joe Blow Enterprise. I have that website and that web page. How do we connect the two things? Do I need to have
What's the name of the business?
I put that to
All
Joe
right.
Blow Enterprise. Do I have a website on Indiegogo? How does they work?
Sure. Yeah, so I mean, you obviously can still keep your own website. On Indiegogo, you would actually have a campaign page that's going to be, hosted within the Indiegogo platform. So all the campaigns you see here, if you actually click through to one, that's going to bring you to the campaign page that lives within our site. And obviously, you can share that link to that page throughout any networks. You can post a link on your own website to attract people that.
So there's no conflict between the two names? I mean, the one name belonging to?
No.
I have a website with that name and a presence with the same name.
Right. I mean, it's not like a partnership affiliation where we own part of your business or anything.
No.
Like that.
What I'm
It's all-
saying, is it any problem by having my website established already? I can have the same name at Indiegogo.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, thank you.
I got another ask question.
So for lender, is there any pre-penalty on paying the loan back early?
No, no.
It's a good question.
When it comes to when you find that you're getting funded, do you find like if somebody set up like a LLC just because it provides more flexibility as opposed to like a C corp, is the investor more inclined to invest in the C corp? Do you find it easier just that is second round investment, you issue more shares as opposed to what you have
So the question is about whether or not investors are more or less inclined to invest in an LLC versus a C corp. For the vast majority of investors, it really isn't part of their consideration set. However, depending on if you are attracting investors from VCs primarily, depending on who those VCs have as LPs, that VC may be restricted from investing in an LLC because it could potentially jeopardize the non-tax status of a particular investor that is invested in the VC. If that makes sense.
How long was the campaign for Star Citizen?
How long is the campaign for Star Citizen? I think it started, it's on their own website, so they're not using any platform. So they just accepting money on their own website, and I think it started almost 2 years ago. So yeah, if you go to somewhere on top, you can see how much money they raised. So I think it's about 80 million. But yeah,
Real money?
yeah, they raised $80 million for a game that doesn't exist.
Can you do that for your money back?
I don't know. I mean, losses is a different thing. I don't know. It's not really regulated. I mean, then it depends on the contract that they sign. So it's I'm not sure. People are kind of pre-buying the game. But people are kind of heading out. Is there any more questions? I think we're gonna be wrapping up here.
Are you eventually gonna have like a follow-up section about, very complicated stuff? Or is this just one question?
I mean, that's like the small business development center here. And you guys want to say this?
Yes, still a follow-up.
If you come to my meetup, and I think all of us have your events in New York as well, so you can actually follow us and we give you a card. And we'll be setting up events. Like I said, I'm doing another event next week for marketing.
No, I'm sorry, I do not work with banks and I don't give information.
No, it's the small
Oh, in
business
terms of
development.
escrow account,
I think the Small Business Development Center, the counselors there, they have relationships with different banks. So when you come in and you make an appointment with one of the counselors, you talk about your idea at what stage it is, and then they are able and prepared to help you put
together a loan package. So if it is contacting a bank, a potential angel investor, or other types of financial institutions, they can help guide that for you.
Or maybe you're a little confused because I said if you wanted to come to Lendor and prepare a loan project presentation, we'll be happy to give it to you to use offline, because currently you cannot do it online, you cannot crowdfund, but it always helps to have your stuff together. You guys can shoot us an email afterwards for sure. I mean, for me,
how long do I go?
Till 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock? All right, sweet.
You said 20 minutes.
Okay. Looks like the lights went out, people leaving. Yeah, go ahead, we have Peter, so questions?
So for Indiegogo, do you need to have a reward, or is that more beneficial?
You don't need a reward.
For a social cause?
For social cause, we see campaigns that, do it without perks, and it's more just people are donating for the cause itself. So you're free to offer perks, but you definitely don't have to.
This is a question for Seed Invest. So Indiegogo talked a little bit about this 30% threshold in terms of getting your campaign around and elevated to the next level. Where do you guys, what's your position on that?
100% agree.
I'm sorry?
100% agree.
Is it 30% from friends and family? Is it whatever, 30% from your
Yeah, so I mean, admittedly, friends and family is a little early stage for the types of companies that we're looking at. We're looking at more of the seed bridge to Series A round. But when it comes to, and again, this is all taken with a grain of salt, because this is from my biased position and experience and how Seed Invest does things. When it comes to the opportunities on our platform, more often than not, they are rounds that are already being led by a small venture capital firm, a family office, a strategic investor, a super angel, and companies will come to us with anywhere from 25% to 75% of their rounds already filled. One of the benefits, if you will, of engaging in the broker-dealer model like we do for the company is that we can legally act essentially like an outsourced fundraising team. So for the companies that are raising on the platform, they have essentially myself or a colleague of mine actively reaching out to our network of investors, pinpointing investors that we think are going to be interested in that opportunity, that can provide value to that company, making introductions, educating investors about the opportunity, and then basically putting them in direct contact with the issuer. There have been a handful of instances of companies that have had maybe just like a few semi-large, kind of investors that, they've kind of come to terms with that, might be putting in a few $100,000 between a group of them, and that's what's kind of establishing the terms of the raise for everybody else that's coming in. But it is very important to have that baseline traction, and it is, I think, regardless of type of crowdfunding, it's going to be in that 20 to 30% range that kind of should be locked in. Kind of point of reference, and actually for your question too, is that so Seed Invest itself actually was the first crowdfunding company to crowdfund for itself on its own platform. We raised our own Series A earlier this year. We are an LLC, and we're able to raise over $4 million from VCs and angels. When it came to that raise, we were on the phone with investors for 2 or 3 weeks before our own campaign went live on our platform, so that when it did go live, we already knew, okay, we have $500,000 that's literally going to be invested in the next 3 days to show that momentum. So whether it's in the donation space, whatever, we do kind of warn issuers that crowdfunding in whatever way, shape, or form is not a panacea. And that especially in the equity space, that it really should just be viewed as another hourly or quicker, and that you need to put in as much effort, kind of on the online fundraising side of things as you would with meeting and investors in the offline world.
But would you say that it's the 30%, or it's that plus a celebrity investor, or sort of a named investor that you can leverage, or a combination of the two, and then you guys, and it's not necessarily,
it's
the
more
marketplace is really you guys, to some extent, it's you guys working on the phone in your network.
Yeah, so it's more about a baseline with momentum than opposed to a certain threshold or certain celebrity. We've actually in more instances than not, having some sort of big investor in the round actually serves as a red flag. We had a company that we were raising money for late last year that had a very, very, very rich individual that was backing the company. Basically, every one of our investors came back and said, okay, well, he's, so in love with this company, why didn't he just take the whole round down himself? Why did they need my $25,000? Part of that is a New York mentality towards investing. The West Coast is very different. But it really is, kind of having that baseline involved, having momentum, and being able to just show a steadily increasing progress bar as opposed to some set threshold that, you need to get past.
I think somebody there didn't ask a question.
I have a question for you. I'm not coming from up with what I'm proceeding there. Okay. What exactly is your fee structure?
So we take a 7.5% placement fee on the amount of capital that we are able to successfully raise for the company. That fee is assessed to the company. Very important from our perspective that investors are not charged for investing through the platform. That isn't necessarily the common way of thinking in the space. A lot of the problem for platforms is deal flow and getting attractive companies onto your platform. Charging companies isn't a great way to do that, but at the end of the day, if you're able to deliver value-add investors, that is ultimately what issuers are looking for.
So you take 7.5%, then the business still has to pay their investors.
So you don't have to pay the investors; they own a part of your business,
You get,
and therefore,
you get equity.
yeah.
Okay. Is there like a percentage? Who decides what equity the investor are getting?
So that would be negotiated with the lead investor in your round. We ourselves do not price or lead the fundraisers on the platform. So I kind of always use as a prototypical example of a company on our platform, and using really easy numbers would be a company looking to raise $1 million. Maybe there's a seed stage venture capital firm that is leading the round, setting the terms, the valuation of that company, and investing $500,000. What we'll basically do is to step in and have that unfilled $500,000 made available to our network of investors, who then invest on the same terms as that VC. And we kind of facilitate that fundraise, but the amount that every kind of dollar that you invest into the company, how much of that company is worth, is going to be dependent upon negotiated valuation with that lead investor.
So does the business get to know who the investor is, or exactly, so do they get to talk within your platform exactly who's who?
Oh, definitely. Technology is great for things like discovery, execution, funding, regulatory requirements, but it's very, very equity crowdfunding is very different from donation-based crowdfunding. You're not going to have a family office, a venture capital firm look at a profile page online and decide to write a $250,000 check into a company. Relationships and trust are still really an integral part of the fundraising process in the early stage, because the fact of the matter is that you're not investing in a company, you're investing in a person. When it comes to things like the idea, there's really no such thing as a unique idea anymore. It's 99% execution, 1% idea. So for investors, they want to know the person that they're backing, and that's kind of part of what we provide as well, is the ability for investors and entrepreneurs to talk over the phone, meet online, meet in person. As we see it, our job is to make sure our investors are making informed investment decisions that they're comfortable with, and are there to essentially facilitate that process as best we can.
Yes?
Yes, hi, my name is Archie. I have a question for Mr. Indiegogo. I'm about 3 weeks out from starting my campaign. I'm having a problem with assessing how much my perk at each stage should be. So is there a rule of thumb for what the value of the perk should be in relation to the dollar amount, so that I don't give up too much of the farm in the beginning?
Well, what are you funding for?
I have a product, a patented product in the United States territories, Canada, and UK.
Yeah, I mean, so the pricing of perks is obviously going to depend on your unique situation as far as, you know, manufacturing costs, how much money you actually need to take into it. I mean, I'd be happy to chat in more detail with you if you like, in specifics. And then if you guys, if you have questions too, you can email me, henry@indiegogo.com, and I'd be happy to, you know, chat about your project.
More questions?
Yeah, where does the money go that you actually take in before it's distributed to? Let me say, the money that you get from the people who either want to invest or the individuals who pledge or actually pay money, where does it go? Where does it help? Is it help in some kind of interest generating investment kind of fund? And then do you generate interest off of the money until it's
No,
distributed?
for Indiegogo, the money's going straight to you. It's processed through, yeah, it's processed through PayPal or credit card processor, but it's going to go straight to you. The only difference would be in a fixed funding campaign, it's going to be held by PayPal until you actually hit your goal, and then they'll release it to you.
Is it possible to crowdfund for a cause that doesn't have a nonprofit?
Yeah, we actually would provide a discount if you are a registered nonprofit, but you can certainly run a campaign even if you're not.
How much? Discount?
It's a 10% discount on nonprofits.
So when, on Indiegogo, since there's a 4% charge that goes to the company, and because you're using PayPal as well, isn't that close to like 6.5%, almost 7%?
Right, if you factor in PayPal charges 3%.
Yes.
Lendo? It's fixed rate.
Okay, they're only operating in Texas.
Sorry.
We will be launching in Texas shortly because of the Title III regulatory delays. Yes, so yeah, we'll be overjoyed to launch nationwide.
I have a question for Indiegogo. I know you're probably going to say like a lot of the projects that come on board that are really successful have like a workable product or whatever. Have you had experiences where someone might have had like a CAD drawing that launched a campaign and was like tremendously successful on there?
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, we definitely have examples of that. You know, we don't require you to have a prototype or anything like that. And it is for more than just products. I mean, we have a lot of creative projects, films, like I said, stuff. So, yeah, you definitely can do it without having to have an actual prototype.
But do you have like any tips you might give someone who might just be in that phase in terms of having like a successful campaign just based on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's important to be able to demonstrate to your contributors, you know, at what stage you're at. You want to be as transparent as possible and really demonstrate what it is you're looking for. You know, I think being further down the road, having things like prototypes definitely help to add, you know, a level of validation to, you know, your ability to actually follow through with the project. But you know, if you're able to get support just from the idea alone, then that's not going to stop you if you're able to do that.
Yes. This is for Seed Investments. Are you guys set up to do a crowdfunding for Reg A or A+ offering?
So, at present, the technical answer would probably be no, if only because the final rules haven't been proposed yet, so we wouldn't know what to set up for. That being said, we're actively kind of developing kind of what we would need to go out for it. The reality is what we've developed thus far for accredited investor-only crowdfunding is a lot more difficult to develop. So simply opening up a raise to non-accredited investors is basically just making a slight adjustment on the back end of the system. For us, it's honestly a little bit more about identifying an appropriate issuer to utilize a Reg A Plus, because it is going to be a brand new type of offering. It's going to be kind of trotting unknown territory. So it's more about finding the right fit in terms of bringing a company essentially public via a Reg A Plus, as opposed to worrying about the technological kind of hurdles on the back end, because they're relatively minimal.
Good question? Yeah, I've got two questions. For Series A investment, do you do a lot of that, or is it just on technology or consumer sectors?
Could you repeat that?
Do you do an investment as primarily technology, or you do a consumer products?
Oh yeah, so it's whether or not we do investments that are primarily technology or consumer products. Our sweet spot is actually a little bit of both. So our kind of mandate, if you will, are kind of companies that are technology powered or technology driven, but kind of looking at the world through the lens of even 15 or 20 years ago, almost every new company nowadays has some sort of technology component to them, so it is a relatively broad mandate. Things that we have seen resonate well with investors are consumer-facing goods, as well as some sort of actual physical product, if only because investors are ADD, and if you can't have them understand and see the value proposition in what you are trying to bring to market in about 30 seconds, they are literally just going to, put the email or, kind of forget about the outreach and kind of move on to the next opportunity that's put in front of them. There are platforms that are very much geared towards consumer products and branded products. A company that has a somewhat similar model to us in terms of broker-dealer approach is called Circula. They do focus basically exclusively on that type of vertical. As time has gone on, there are more and more platforms that are focused on specific types of verticals or asset classes, like real estate crowdfunding platforms that have emerged. For us, we take a pretty holistic approach when it comes to the types of opportunities that we have on our platform, and if nothing else, the primary driver of whether or not we put something online, whether in addition to the fact that it passes our due diligence process, is whether or not it's an opportunity that we think is going to resonate with our network of investors. So that's really kind of the primary driver on our end.
The fee that you charge now, based on these investors, they're always in agreement as far as with your fee?
So yeah, so we, through our broker-dealer, sign an issuer agreement with the issuers on our platform that delineates essentially what the fee is, the amount of the raise that's allocated to our network of investors, and the various rights that both the issuer and we, through our broker-dealer, maintain over the course of the relationship.
If I could just ask you a question on these investments from the point of view of the investor, what's the horizon on the maturation of these investments?
So the typical liquidation event is going to occur 4 to 7 years from the date of your investment. However, about 90% of the investments that we make in this space are going to fail before that time. It's like I said, it's a very risky asset class, but it is also one of the reasons why we see tremendous value in crowdfunding platforms. By introducing efficiencies into the process, we are able to bring down minimum investment amounts and allow investors to build diversified portfolios of startup investments. Companies that, there are companies that we've worked with that, when talking to investors offline, wouldn't accept an investment less than $200,000 or $250,000 that we're able to make available to our investors for a minimum investment of $10,000.
What's the typical return?
On a deal-by-deal basis, it'll vary substantially.
Some ballpark.
better than what the stock market has returned over the past 20 years, if you build a diversified portfolio of at least 30 investments.
It's different, I mean, it's typical VC returns, right, so it's very different. It's hard to tell, because these equity.
Yeah, and it's also kind of more in a kind of cash-on-cash multiple return, and it's going to vary very substantially depending on the time period you're analyzing, you know, the methodology behind it, but it's a, it is an asset class that is proven to return, to provide returns that are relatively uncorrelated with the stock market, and in reality, that's a large part of what we're seeing recently are an increasing number of investors who just don't trust the public markets, but still want their money to go to work. I have had an increasing number of discussions with hedge funds that.
Are you guys doing social impact investment in your portfolio?
Not directly, but, you know.
Is that part of your philosophy?
No, not necessarily, but, you know, companies that we've raised money, so for example, the real estate crowdfunding platform I mentioned earlier that's raising our platform right now, they focus specifically on residential rehab projects throughout the U.S. So, you know, they kind of have one of those more like triple bottom line type mentalities. You know, for us, our focus is more on attractive investment opportunities.
I have a question for Aaron. Based on the investors on your site, is it more traditional angels, or is it for the investors who are not traditionally investing in companies, and now because of these websites and crowdfunding, they try to diversify the portfolio and look more into it? So what's the breakdown?
So, taking a look at kind of like the evolution, our platform launched in February of last year, so I've been running for a bit over a year and a half. Started with 0 investors on the platform. Right now we have about 6,200 accredited individual and institutional investors within our network. Originally it really was just, you know, your traditional angels, whether financial services professionals, doctors, lawyers, entrepreneurs that had experienced exits. We then saw and have continued to see an increase in the number of individuals signing up on behalf of venture capital firms, on behalf of family offices, on behalf of hedge funds, you know, kind of getting a little bit more into the institutional space that are looking at this asset class, which is a pattern that was already, you know, kind of realized by the debt, the peer-to-peer lending and the debt crowdfunders, because they just, you know, kind of got out of the gate a little bit earlier than us. What we've been seeing a bit more recently, to Alex's point, almost entirely, especially as more and more people learn about equity crowdfunding, more and more people kind of get comfortable with it, are investors that, you know, have never invested in this asset class previously, and are interested in starting to invest in startups. Part of it is because startups, it's you know, it's kind of like an exciting space. You can kind of be part of the next thing. There also is the element of people who want to diversify out of the public markets. But, you know, as time has gone on, there has just been an increasing number of people. And as Alex said, the problem with raising from accredited investors right now is that only about 2% of Americans meet the definition of an accredited investor. And of that 2%, only about 2% are actively investing in startups. So our entire universe as it stands right now is about 340,000 individuals in the United States in total that are active in this space. By, you know, a lot of the people don't do it because either one, they feel intimidated by it, they're not educated by it, but a big part of it is that if you don't happen to live in New York City or in San Francisco, and you aren't connected to the right people, you literally just do not see that deal flow. You have no way of those opportunities, you know, knowing about those opportunities, and that's another one of the primary benefits of platforms like ours is that it breaks down the traditional geographic and relationship barriers that have existed to investors not only learning about opportunities, but also companies getting in front of strategic value-add investors that they wouldn't have had the ability to access previously.
Let's have one more question. All right, go ahead.
This my question is for Indiegogo. What is the interval? Let's say if you don't raise you know, for that particular donation, all right, and how long you're allowed to try again?
What do you mean?
for argument's sake, if you don't meet your goal,
Oh, if you don't meet your goal.
and then let's say you decide to do it again, is it possible?
Yeah, there's no real duration. I mean, you're free to launch your campaign. If you don't hit your goal, you can definitely launch another one.
All right, well, I mean, we'll stay for a couple minutes after the panel, so if you have individual questions, feel free to come up. We can get people's cards, their emails, talk to them directly. And let's have a hand of applause for the panel. Thank you very much for coming today.
Remember to thank our student volunteers, Sonali and Jimmy and Amy.
Thank you. Is this going to be available online? Is the video going to be available online still, or the video?
Yes.
Maybe, oh, okay.